Overwhelmingly the United States since the Second World War, Britain before that, and concentrations of private power, which are enormous, and tyrannical corporations closely linked to the powerful states. It's a network of concentrated power. It was the first time in hundreds of years that the West, Europe, and its offshoots have suffered the kind of criminal atrocity that they constantly carry out against others, which is quite a change. That's why there's such shock in the West. This kind of thing we do to you, you don't do it to us. And it's like the reaction in England when, at the time of the so-called Indian Mutiny rebellion in India, tremendous shock that they should do to us what we do to them all the time. It didn't take much genius to predict that governments throughout the world would use it as an opportunity to intensify repressive and sometimes violent actions, and that's just what's happened. I think there are conditions under which that would be possible. I mean, one basic condition is that nonviolent, you mean violent intervention, that nonviolent means have been exhausted. That's one condition. A second condition is that the people of the country in which you're intervening support the intervention. Under those conditions, and you can think of others, intervention would be justified. However, we don't ever apply those conditions. It was understood back at the time of the First World War that it's becoming much more difficult to control people by force. The popular struggles have led to the development of unions, parliamentary labor party, franchise extended, and so on. And coercion is just not going to work by force. So therefore you have to control thought. It's very striking that the contemporary systems of thought control, which are highly developed, very self-conscious, so leaders talk all about it. Impressed American intellectuals who developed the conception of what they called manufacture of consent, control of thought. Impressed Hitler, who blamed the German defeat on superior Anglo-American propaganda and vowed that next time Germany would be prepared. And it has led in England and the United States primarily, England secondarily, to huge Sure, but when people were under the lash, they knew about it too. People are so aware of it that it has led to tremendous cynicism about almost anything. I mean, nobody believes what government officials say. Nobody believes what they read in the press. People don't That's led to enormous cynicism and tremendous opposition. In fact, in my view, the more crucial things than the ones you mentioned. Intellectuals are a separate category. Intellectuals are mostly servants of power. I'm talking about the general public, not the intellectual world. They remain pretty constant. I don't think they're subject to these changes, except marginally, of course, to some extent. But they're quite different. And quite generally, it goes right through history, intellectuals have been servants of power. Take, say, the First World War. On all sides, Germany, England, United States, France, intellectuals were extremely enthusiastic about the war. There were a few dissenters, and the best known of them ended up in jail, like Bertrand Russell, for example, or Eugene Debs in the United States, or Rosa Luxemburg in Germany. Very small group of critics, some of them best known in prison. But most intellectuals were enthusiasts for their own why, and other people offer solutions. Often the solutions are don't carry out crimes. That's the simplest solution. So if you want to reduce terrorism in the world, let's say, there's one very simple solution. Stop participating in it. That doesn't end everything, but it cuts back the amount of terror by quite a notable amount. So that's a simple solution. If you want to look at other more complex cases, take, say, the Israel-Palestine problem. I think is a solution, namely the one that the large majority of the American population support, which happens to be the international consensus on a two-state settlement that the U.S. government rejects. Okay, so there's a solution for you. Let's just follow the will of the American population and go through the list. For example, on say, environmental issues, there's plenty of solution. It's claimed that what you say is correct. That's what's claimed by the intellectual world, that no solutions are offered by the critics. That's just nonsense. It's just they don't like the solutions. To be broken. I mean, slavery was broken, oppression of women was broken, opposition to aggression was broken, feudalism was broken. You look over history, one after another form of coercion and control has been broken. As the Soviet system was collapsed from inside, every system of tyranny we know about and oppression has been, people chip away at it, and it ultimately collapses. There's nothing special about them. I mean, the systems of power that exist now are quite fragile, and they know it. So the World Economic Forum, for example, is well aware. That's what the Financial Times called the masters of the universe. They're well aware of how fragile their control is and concerned about it, and rightly. This famous phrase that was borrowed by Gramsci, and that we should have pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will. It's sensible.